Hello. It's your boy Ambassador again doing his thing. Well, this time around it's not the beef, yeah. But still a move in the direction of Africa, but just a kind of discreet presentation of Jovi. I mean, for those who have been following up Cameroonian hip hop, you know, like Jovi is the biggest rap artist we have out there. He came in a little bit in the beef dissing thing, but maybe he felt like he was not gaining that much, so he pulled back a little bit. Although he made some statements about beef here and he was speaking in French. For those who know, Cameroon is a bilingual country, so we speak English and French. So I'll translate most of the French lines which were in there, but knowing my style of analysis, it's all about the deep lines, the witty punch lines, the bars, the construction of the rap flow, that's the flow on the beat and the flow as the connection of the various words and the lines in it. So things like that. But Jovi generally is not that kind of artist here. If you listen to the song, it's he calls it strong enemies. So that's already like two, how can I put it, contrasting words to have enemies and strong in the same line. And then he goes on to talk about frenemies, so friend and enemy. So I think that's some literary plays doing, they're putting those two very contrasting words together, but it has a meaning. It's almost like, as they say, when you rise, your friends become your enemies, so it becomes a frenemy. And then from the cover art, which is it's telling us a lot too. He's going to the next level. So on the cover art you have Jovi, and then you have a couple of guys have put their hands on his head, which may be a symbol of like he's getting the blessings of his brother. And if you listen to the hook, he talks about his whole thing, him hanging out with his guys and their fraternity and all of that. So it's like his brothers are giving him their blessing for him to move on to the next stage. So he has conquered Cameroon and now he's maybe moving on to Africa. And when you listen to the song, you could get that trend to on it, yeah. So the whole thing is strong enemies. Jovi generally is what I called he's a culture artist. Yeah, he's not a very lyrical. So in my analysis, most of the time when I talk about people's word plays, their bars, their deep lines, the connection of their flow, how they use certain words and then do word plays and all of that, Jovi does not lay emphasis so much on that. So like for those who are, let's say, hip hop historians, you will know like Nas was a lyricist. Jay-Z was more of a culture rapper. He was rapping with the culture, with the times. What's his name? J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar are more of lyricists, but Drake is more of a culture rapper. So Puff Daddy is a culture rapper. Those who like, they play around with the trends, the words which are buzzing at the time. They play around with the brand. They talk about it. Maybe use some witty lines with regards to movies that are trending. So that's what we call a culture rapper. He's in touch with the times. And I think history has proven that those who are in touch with the times last more and get bigger compared to those who are lyricists are more, especially those who are like purists. When I talk of purists now, it's no longer the Kendrick Lamars and the Drakes. No, the Kendrick Lamars and the Tupacs is more of the KRS One, the what's his name, KRS One. How do they call this other guy? I've just forgotten his name. But there are all these guys who are not very popular, but they are very deep in their lyrical flow. So Jovi is more one of those guys who is he's a culture guy. He plays around with the things which are trending in the culture right now. And the culture in Cameroon is what we call them Boko rap. Boko rap is a mixture of English and our local slangs, that's in Pidgin English, or French, and what we call Franc Anglais, which is a kind of broken French mixed with English. So it's two cultures put together, French and English. So in the English side we have Pidgin being thrown into it, and then in the French side you have Franc Anglais, which is like a mixture of French and English thrown into it. So people who don't really appreciate the Cameroonian culture like, might not really get what he's talking about, but he has very witty lines, but it's more witty lines going with the culture. Yeah. So he starts by saying he's with his brothers and they are now frenemies. His friends become enemies, and then they have the whole frenemy line. He's repping Boko till he dies. That's eternity. So Boko, and then now he has a very strong cult following, the whole Boko gang thing. If you look it up in Cameroon, there's a whole group which follows him very loyally. It's mostly young people. Some might be into the whole culture of reggae, weed, urban youth kind of thing. So because he uses the urban language, the diction of the everyday youth, so they relate to that level. Then there are also the guys who are like, he talks about Boko, Banga, all of those kind of things, they relate to it. So he has all of those kind of more of urban lifestyle kind of artists here. So he goes on to talk about Boko till die, it's eternity. He talks about, then that's why I said now he's getting the blessings from his brothers from Cameroon. He has conquered Cameroon, he's going to Africa. So the whole narrative, which I'm saying, the whole Champions League narrative now is this person who he's coming to the Champions League, but he does not meet the, how can I even call it, the opponents who he's coming for. So he's just passively involved in it, but he has not met the opponent. So there are certain teams where, I mean, you could have, let me say, I'm looking for a team who does that, where when they meet, let's say, smaller teams, they'll go for a draw, a 2-1, but they bring out their best talent. There's Everton. I think there's one team in the UK, Everton, where they usually bring out their best talent when they're playing against the biggest teams here. So Jovi is one of those kind of guys. When it's the smaller guys, he's like, he's not really interested. But I'm very sure if any big guy goes at him, he'll go salvage at the guy here. So but he wants to go into the whole Champions League of Africa. He wants to also come into contest for Africa and all of that. But he's not yet having the kind of opponents and contestants he wants to see on that battlefield here. But now when you listen to what he's saying, he used the whole geographical situating himself thing to touch base with his fans. So he said he's chap from Malabo. So chap in English, that's like your girlfriend or your girl from Malabo says hasta mañana. So he throws a bit of Spanish there. That's related to people from there. Then when he links up with the South, that's South Africa. We rep. So when he goes to the South, he rep Bafana. That's relating now the people in South Africa. And then he moves on to say they want to know his sign for Hausa. It's Kanama. So for those who know, like the Hausa, should I say the Hausa tribe cuts across most of North Africa. So Nigeria, in Chad, in Cameroon, most of these Francophone parts of Africa, or even the English part, they have the Hausa tribe that cuts across and they have a similar language. So when he says maybe Kanama, maybe they relate. And then he talks about he's from Mabanda. So Mabanda is should I even call it what, a neighborhood, yeah. So he says he's from the Mabanda neighborhood, but when he goes to Uganda and he lands in Kampala, he ties his banga. So banga is weed. They call it banga. Yeah, I think most people even know the slang banga too. So weed most of the time. That's why I said he has that kind of urban thing, touching base with the urban youth. Weed is big in certain urban circles, so all of those kind of things. So in Uganda, he touches base with brother. God made it easy if the devil wears Prada. So there's that popular film of the devil wears Prada. It has become a whole slang thing. So and we know like Kanye West usually refers himself as he's a god, but in the sense of God, the God reincarnation of God through man. So he's a god, and then so God made it easy if the devil wears Prada. We can see the game is trying to play the God. If the devil is now wearing Prada, so we'll rather move to Yeezy. God has made the Yeezys now. And then there's this line which I think he even put on his Twitter account where he said he needs respect. That's what he needs the most in collaboration and whatever when he's working with people. He needs respect. So any artist who does not come to him or relates with him in a respectful manner, does not really care who you are or what you're about, he's not going to be willing to work with you. He thinks he's at that level. So he dropped that line when he said he does not need them to give him a hand up. And you know, Jovi has that, we call it dry cockiness here. He's not bragging like I have cars, I have this and that, but it's more of like, I am the baddest out there, I'm self-sufficient, I'm good like that. He feels like he's the one, I mean like he feels like he's already a legend. Although some people might argue about that, but if he has that feeling, so he's those kind of, you get that feeling from some of his lines. And then he said he said Mimbo de my skin like my drip na Isenbeck. So Mimbo in Cameroon, that's a pidgin word, pidgin English. So the first verse he did it in English and pidgin English kind of thing, and then his second verse he did it in French and Franc-Anglais kind of thing. So he played with those cultures in Cameroon, and that's why he's like, urban music wise, he's the most youth friendly and the most cult following person is Jovi, because he relates with the youth like that. He really plays with those things here. He does not go deep rap or poetry, because the ordinary youth will not really dig. If you're not a hip hop fan, hip hop fanatic, you not really relate. But when you hear some of those words, when he says his blood is all filled with beer, and he calls a popular beer Isenberg, so it's like his blood is all filled with beer, as if he's drip. So drip is like the drip thing you get when you're in the hospital. But instead of glucose, his is filled with beer, so Isenberg. And then so he said, chap them flop for Bush, problem now for select. So he also dropped the line where he said, no, first, I had this double meaning. I was like, which Bush is he talking about? Because in Cameroon, we refer, in Pidgin English, they refer to when you're abroad or you're in the diaspora, they call it Bush. But there's also the issue of bush, like the real bush in the farm, bush trees, bush. So I'm like, which bush is he talking about here though? But I'm tilting more towards the bush of there are many girls abroad. It's just to select which one. So maybe it's him just bragging like he has many girls out there. It's just which one he wants to link with. Yaenga de Marseille, Jefom Unga de Marseille, something like that. So in the direction of he has slept with or he has dated a girl from Marseille, that's Marseille in France. And we know Jovi had a very high profile relationship with a very famous Cameroonian. She's a blogger, journalist kind of person. I think they even had a child kind of thing. So I don't know if she was from Marseille, but I know she was based in France. She's between France and Cameroon. So when he's bragging about he having girls abroad in France, I already know what direction it's going to be. It was not very specific in that line. And then he started now with a very cultural punchline-ish kind of line when he said, le cube fait la pub, mais tu connais, tu sais qui est le seul. So he was not like tu sais qui est le seul, but the direction was like, there is this slang in Cameroon where we say salt does not need publicity, but Maggi cube needs publicity. So salt is something which was already with us most of the time in our local things. So everybody buys salt. They don't do publicity for salt. Salt, they just tie it in wrappers like that and they sell it out here. But they do a lot of publicity for Maggi cube. So that's what he's trying to say. Like, there are people who need to brand themselves, make noise. He does, and it's true. The other I was even saying it somewhere, like he's one of the guys who does not do like media tours and then do media campaigns for his songs. He just puts it out there, almost like it's a gamble, and then just like let the crowd just go with it, let the streets pick it up and let them go with it like that. He does not do a lot of, he might do one or two, I don't know, they might do some distribution things with some one or two DJs, I don't know, but generally the kind of massive publicity and media runs we see other artists do, every other artist in Cameroon, Jovi doesn't. He just throws a song out there on Facebook, YouTube, and let the streets run with it, and they relate, and it blows up. The songs blow up bigger than most other songs here. That's how Jovi runs. So he said, so that's the line he says, le cube fait la pub, mais tu sais qui le sel. So almost like Maggi Cube, that's the Maggi Cube does publicity, but we know with salt. He's salt. He does not need publicity. He just goes. People will demand him no matter what. He said le Gaia. So he's saying that le Gaia, le clash vient un peu on essaye. So that line is almost like people like. So that's what I was feeling like. He's seen all the beef things, but he has not seen the kind of attention or the kind of thing he wants to go at in the beef thing. Remember, at one point he was hot on it, but he pulled back kind of, yeah. So he said, people like clash, come a little bit, let's try. That's what that line is just saying. So people are enjoying the whole clash thing now. Let someone come a little bit, let them try. Ma compétition ressent le malaise. So it's almost like my competition is feeling malaise, uncomfortable. So my competition is feeling uncomfortable. Tu parles de zik, alors ce n'est pas ton domaine. So it's almost like people, because like it happens a lot now, everybody's criticizing, because there's a lot of music and attention on music right now. Everybody's talking about music, but it's like people are talking a lot about music, but it's not their domain. Yeah. Donc je fala le rond parce que ça résoudra le problème. So that's a mixture of Franc Anglais and French, where he says je fala le rond. So the fala, it's like it's Franc Anglais, it's not French. So it's like I'm chasing money because money solves my problems. Donc je fala le rond parce que ça résoudra le problème. Donc that's a mixture of French and Franc Anglais. Et s'il y a le rond, l'album commente dans une semaine. Donc in that line, he's almost going at it like if there is money and everything he needs, he can put out an album in a week. So that's why all he needs is just the money to put out things. He'll put it out in a week. So I feel like lots of, I call them culture lines. It's not really the kind of punch lines which I like to dig at, and the kind of literary or the lyrical plays I like to go with. It's not that deep, but it's more of a culture artist, the Boko thing for the urban youth. I mean, like even when I was abroad, when you listen to a Jovi song, you're just happy because you hear the words you can relate to, you hear the neighborhoods, you hear those slangs, and you just, it takes you relate to it a lot more. Yeah. So that's your boy Ambassador doing his thing again. It was Jovi, Strong Enemies from Cameroon. I feel like it's a solid piece. It just goes to feed more of his target audience or his already existing market segment. So I feel like it's a good one generally out there. Your boy Ambassador, I'm out.